Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, great. So today we're heading straight to the center of a massive star.
Oh, well.
Yeah, a star about 25 times the mass of our sun. We're going to tackle stellar convection.
Sounds intense.
It is, but also really cool. We're using excerpts from, well, get ready for this title, 3D hydrodynamic simulations of massive main sequence stars. 3. The effect of radiation pressure and diffusion, leading to a 1D equilibrium model.
Catchy, huh?
I know, right? Don't worry, though. We'll break it down. We'll uncover some really awesome stuff about how stars actually work.
You know what I find really interesting about this paper is that it's like trying to solve this mystery.
Uh-oh, a mystery.
Yeah. Scientists have been struggling to get their models of how stars mix material in their cores to, well, to line up with what we're actually seeing in real stars.
So our models are a bit off.
A little bit. They predict that mixing happens way faster than it actually does.
So we need to tweak things a bit, make our models more realistic.
You got it. And this paper dives deep, pun intended, into two factors that could be the key to solving this mixing puzzle.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Hit me with those factors.
Radiation, pressure, and diffusion.
Got it. We'll unpack those a bit later. But first, I think we need to take a step back, remind ourselves what convection actually is. I mean, it's easy to picture, a pot of water boiling.
Right.
But how does that translate to what's happening at the heart of a star? Help me out here.
Okay, so picture that pot of boiling water, right? You've got the heat at the bottom, makes the water less dense so it starts rising.
Okay, I'm following.
As it rises, it cools down, becomes denser, and sinks back down. That whole cycle, that's convection. Now just imagine the same thing happening inside a star.
Okay, so swap out water for...
Superheated plasma, the stuff stars are made of.
The stars are like giant boiling cosmic pots?
Pretty much. And this convection process, it's how heat travels from the super hot core of a star outward. It's like a crucial player in the star's life.
Right. But you mentioned earlier that our current models, they kind of overestimate how fast all this mixing is happening. So what kind of problems does that create?
Well, if a star actually mixed material that quickly, it would change drastically.
Meaning?
Well, it would evolve way differently than what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Like, think about it like a cake. If you overmix the batter...
Oh, no.
Exactly. It can get really tough.
Yeah.
Same idea with a star. The rate of mixing messes with, well, pretty much everything. Its lifespan, brightness, even how it eventually, dies.
Wow. Okay, so getting that mixing right is kind of important then.
Super important.
Makes sense. Now, this paper, it's all about using simulations to get a better grasp on convection, right? Are we talking like creating a virtual star inside a computer?
Bingo. It's pretty mind-blowing. These scientists, they're using crazy powerful computers, super complex software to recreate what's happening inside a star. They're even factoring in things like radiation pressure, which is the force from light itself.
Whoa, I never thought about light exerting force.
It does.
Okay, so they're building a star in a computer. But here's the thing. A star's life, we're talking millions, even billions of years.
Right.
How can they possibly simulate that in, like, a reasonable amount of time?
Ah, that's where the fun begins. They've got this technique called boosting. Essentially, they fast-forward the simulation.
Fast forward, like hitting play at double speed.
Kinda. But they're very carefully increasing the star's luminosity and diffusion rates. It's like watching a time lapse, but they're making sure the important stuff stays the same.
So thanks to this boosting, we can now watch a star evolve over, what, millions of years, like in a much shorter time frame?
You got it. It's a game changer. But it's crucial they make sure this boosting isn't messing with the results, right?
Absolutely. How do they check that?
Lots and lots of tests. They compare simulations with different boost factors to make sure that the core stuff, the physics, remains consistent.
Okay, that's reassuring. Makes sense. And now, all this talk about mixing is fascinating, but you also mentioned something called internal gravity waves. What are those all about?
Okay, imagine this. That boiling motion of convection, it creates these ripples, these waves that move through the star. We call them internal gravity waves, or IGWs for short, and they're capable of carrying energy, even material, to different parts of the star.
Interesting. So even though a star has like distinct layers, the core, the radiative zone, the convective zone, these waves can cause mixing between those layers.
Exactly. And it's pretty exciting because this might help explain how material gets transported in ways we hadn't fully considered before.
So we might have to revise our understanding of how stars evolve a bit.
Well, I wouldn't say revise, more like we're adding a new layer of complexity to the whole picture.
Yeah.
These IGWs, they're a mixing mechanism we hadn't fully accounted for.
Got it. Okay, so we've got these IGWs traveling through the star, potentially causing mixing. But I remember you saying something about radiation acting as a brake on these waves.
You got a good memory. Radiative diffusion, the process of heat spreading out, it can actually weaken these waves, especially the ones with shorter wavelengths.
Wait, why does wavelength matter here? Is it like trying to stop ripples in a pond? The smaller the ripple, the easier it is to stop.
Perfect analogy. It's like wind blowing across the surface of a pond, right? Gentle breezes only mess with the tiniest ripples. But strong gusts, those disrupt even the bigger waves. Same idea here. Radiative diffusion really targets those short wavelength IGWs.
So the real question is, how much mixing can these waves actually do, considering this dampening effect?
That's the million-dollar question. And the answer, well, it's more complex than we might have thought.
Okay, spill the tea. What did they find?
Their simulations revealed that over really long periods, the mixing actually slows down.
Hold on, I thought we were talking about how convection causes mixing. Why would it slow down?
So it seems that as convection keeps mixing, a positive entropy gradient forms in the penetration region. That's the area where convection is like pushing beyond its usual boundaries.
Entropy gradient. Break that down for me, please. What is it? And what does it do to the mixing?
Okay, so think of entropy as a measure of disorder or randomness. In this case, this entropy gradient, it acts like a barrier. It makes further mixing way harder. Think about trying to stir really thick pudding.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's hard to mix thoroughly because of the resistance.
So the star is basically creating its own brakes on the mixing over time. That's fascinating. But how do they model all this? It seems so intricate.
Well, to handle all this over such long periods, they came up with this really clever 1D model. It's like a simplified version of their complex 3D simulations,
Yeah.
but captures all the essential information.
Going back to a 1D model, why simplify things?
Efficiency. The 1D model uses info from the 3D simulation, like how fast kinetic energy dissipates, to predict how that convection zone will settle into a stable state over really long periods.
So it's like a shortcut, a faster way to model the star's behavior without losing accuracy.
Precisely. And that's super important because it lets us study stellar evolution over much longer timescales and understand how stars live, evolve, and eventually, die.
It's amazing, right? We can actually simulate something as complex as a star.
It is pretty incredible.
And not only that, these simulations are teaching us new things about how stars work.
Oh, absolutely. And this is just one piece of the puzzle. This research, this whole thing about stellar convection, it impacts way more than just how stars mix material.
Okay, I'm all ears. What else does it tell us about the universe?
Well, just think about it for a second. Stars are like cosmic factories.
Yeah.
They're creating all these elements that make up, well, everything, even us.
You're saying that understanding this mixing process, convection, it's essential for figuring out how those elements are made.
Exactly. It all ties back to that mixing rate in the star's core. It impacts the star's lifespan, how it eventually dies, and how efficiently it creates those heavier elements.
So like a star that mixes stuff up really well, it might actually live longer because it has more fuel to burn. Like a well-mixed fuel tank in a car, it can go further.
Perfect analogy. And on the flip side, a star that doesn't mix so well, it might burn through its fuel faster and have a shorter life. It's all about how well the star can use its fuel reserves.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about when a star dies? How does convection play into that whole scenario?
Good question. As a star ages, it creates heavier and heavier elements in its core through nuclear fusion
Right.
and convection. It's the key player in moving those elements outwards, enriching the star's outer layers.
And that impacts what happens when the star eventually, kicks the bucket.
Big time. What those outer layers are made of, that determines what kind of supernova it'll produce, or if it even goes supernova at all. Some stars just kind of fizzle out as white dwarfs, while others, they become neutron stars, or even black holes.
So by understanding convection, we can actually predict what's going to happen to a star billions of years in the future. That's wild. Something happening deep inside can determine its ultimate fate.
It really is. And it's not just the fate of the star itself, but also what happens to everything around it, supernovae. They're the ones that spread all those heavy elements throughout the universe, the building blocks for planets, and even life.
Mind blown. We started with a deep dive into the core of a star, and now we're talking about the origins of life.
It shows how interconnected everything is in the universe, doesn't it?
It really does. When I think about stars, I usually just picture, like, these big, fiery balls of gas. But now I can't help but imagine all this crazy activity happening inside,
Oh, yeah.
constantly shaping how they evolve and impacting the universe around them.
It's a good reminder that nothing's really static out there. Even on the grandest scales, there's this constant dance of energy, matter, forces, all trying to find a balance. And stellar convection. It's like a key choreographer in that cosmic dance.
Speaking of those simulations, I'm curious about how they actually, work. Can you give us a peek behind the curtain without getting too lost in the equations?
Sure, imagine like a giant 3D grid, like a cosmic chessboard, representing the inside of the star. Each point on that grid has information about the temperature, pressure, density, all that good stuff at that exact spot.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Then the simulation uses the laws of physics to calculate how those things change over time, basically mimicking what the star is doing.
It's like a giant computer game, but instead of spaceships and aliens, we're dealing with plasma and gravity.
You got it. And these simulations, they're really demanding. They need some of the most powerful supercomputers in the world to run.
Wow, I bet. And they're probably constantly getting tweaked and updated as we learn more about stars, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Every new observation, every new theory, it feeds back into those models, making them more and more accurate. It's a constant challenge, but that's what makes it so exciting.
It sounds like there are endless possibilities. What other mysteries could we unlock with these simulations?
Well, the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing. These same techniques, they could be applied to all sorts of astrophysical phenomena. Imagine using them to investigate how galaxies form, how black holes evolve, even how dark matter behaves.
Wow, so we're not just talking about understanding stars anymore, we're talking about the entire universe.
Exactly. And it all starts with understanding the fundamental processes, like that turbulent dance of convection in a star's core. From there, who knows what we might discover?
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. We've journeyed to the heart of a massive star, explored all those complexities of stellar convection, and even glimpsed the future of computational astrophysics. It's been quite a deep dive.
Definitely a deep dive. And it really highlights how scientific curiosity, that desire to understand the universe, can lead to some truly amazing discoveries. Who would have thought that studying how a star mixes stuff up could tell us so much about the cosmos?
It's a great reminder that there's always more to learn, more to explore, and the universe is just full of wonder and beauty waiting to be uncovered.
So keep looking up at those stars and never stop asking questions. You never know what amazing discoveries are just around the corner.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.
It really makes you appreciate the power of science, unveiling these hidden worlds. We've gone from just looking at these pinpoints of light to actually simulating what's happening deep inside a star.
And it's just the beginning, right? Where do we go from here? What's the next step?
Well, this particular paper, it focused on a young star, one that's still burning through its hydrogen fuel. But as the star gets older, things change, right? It starts to make heavier elements, and that's going to mess with the whole convection thing happening in its core.
So the mixing, the waves, everything we talked about, it changes as the star ages.
Exactly. And understanding how that all changes, that's key to figuring out the whole picture of how stars evolve from birth to death.
Another thing that really struck me is how much these simulations rely on computing power. They're basically recreating stars inside supercomputers. Does that limit what we can study? Are we pushing the boundaries of what's even possible?
Yeah, it's true. Computational astrophysics, it needs a lot of horsepower, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, technology keeps advancing. Faster processors, better algorithms, they let us simulate more and more complex stuff with more accuracy. It's a challenge for sure, but it's also what makes this field so exciting.
Sounds like a whole universe of possibilities waiting to be explored. What other mysteries could we unlock with these simulations?
Oh man, the possibilities are mind-boggling. These techniques, they're not limited to just stars. We could use them to study all kinds of things, like how galaxies are formed, how black holes evolve, even the behavior of dark matter.
Wow, so we're not just talking about understanding stars anymore, we're talking about the entire universe.
Exactly. It all comes back to understanding these basic processes, like that crazy convection dance in a star's core. Who knows where that knowledge might lead us?
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. We've explored a massive star, dove into the complexities of stellar convection, even got a glimpse of the future of computational astrophysics. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, definitely a deep dive. It shows how scientific curiosity, that thirst to understand the universe around us, can lead to incredible discoveries. Who would have thought that studying how a star mixes up its ingredients could unlock so many secrets about the cosmos?
It's a great reminder that there's always more to learn, always more to explore. And the universe. It's brimming with wonder, just waiting for us to uncover it.
So keep looking up at those stars and never stop asking those questions. You never know what amazing discoveries are just around the corner.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.